It seems like almost every day we get a new Bitcoin price prediction. But did you know the very first Bitcoin price prediction happened 17 years ago, just 2 days after Bitcoin was launched? Legendary cypherpunk Hal Finney imagined a world where Bitcoin was worth $10 million a coin, back when it was worth 0 and had 0 users. And this was insane for people even back at the time. And it might be insane for people today. There was no price, there was no exchanges, there were no institutions, there was literally no one using Bitcoin other than Hal. But fast forward to today, when you see rising inflation, the value of gold, bonds, stock, real estate, Bitcoin capturing a $100 trillion market doesn't seem so speculative. What Hal Finney understood a long time ago was that Bitcoin was competing for the global store of value. And today, we're gonna take some time to remember Hal Finney and what running Bitcoin meant back then and what it means today. This is Dante Coco Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. All right, I know some of my viewers aren't football or basketball fans. I tend to talk a lot about football, but let me start off by saying yesterday was a great day to be a football fan. The Panthers-Rams game was amazing. They had 4 fourth quarter lead changes and the ending was amazing. The Rams snuck it out in the end, but the Bears game was incredible. On 4th down with the season on the line, Caleb Williams made the throw of a lifetime on 4th down with the game on the line. Rolling to his left with the defender on his heels, he literally did the Jordan pose in order to make a throw that we might not ever see again for a long time.
2nd down.
Let's go back to that previous play on 4th down. But Doomsday, by the way, came all the
Bears came back down from 18 points and won. Unbelievable finish. And you also know why January 10th is such a special day. Well, it's a special day not because of football, but because it was the first day beyond Satoshi Nakamoto that there was another person running Bitcoin. And we all know that person now to be Hal Finney. Hal Finney is not only considered one of the fathers of Bitcoin, but one of the fathers of privacy in a digital age, period. He's been part of building tools to help everyday people defend themselves against government overreach for almost 30 years prior to Bitcoin. He said, I think I was the first person besides Satoshi to run Bitcoin. Mining block 70 something, I was the recipient of the first Bitcoin transaction when Satoshi sent 10 coins to me as a test. And literally the next day, on January 11th, he predicted the first Bitcoin price prediction ever, that Bitcoin would be worth $10 million a coin. He said, imagine if Bitcoin became successful and became the dominant form or payment system throughout the world. It would capture a $100 trillion to $300 trillion wealth market. The thought of this was ridiculous at the time, even to people like Adam Back. When asked about the early cypherpunk movement and the beginning of Bitcoin, Adam Back had this to say about Hal Finney.
Are there any other early cypherpunks that were critical to the development of Bitcoin that don't get enough light or people aren't as aware of as the main ones?
Well, I think Nick Szabo and Oidai have, it seemed like Satoshi wasn't aware of B-Money and BitGold from my interactions, and my email exchanges there weren't many of them, but they were published as part of the COPA trial, so people can look at them and try and form their own view. But it seemed like he wasn't aware of either of those projects. It seems like he sort of independently, clearly was aware of Hashcash, and he independently rediscovered and added the B-Money citation when I sent him that as a suggested thing to look at. And I'd kind of half forgotten about BitGold at the time. Otherwise, he might have cited that. So, and I think Hal Finney, was quite active in the very early Bitcoin period, right? I think he tried it out and received the first transaction, I think, like a block 9 transaction. And actually, I think within a day of Bitcoin Network starting, he put his, Bitcoin could the addressable market for Bitcoin is $100 trillion. It's just crazy, right? It's like day one, there are no users, and he's thinking big picture. And of course now we are, much, much closer to that than at that time. So
what's fascinating about this is that Hal Finney had passion and zeal when many of the other gray-haired cypherpunks had lost interest and had lost faith and had lost hope. There had been starts and stops with other people trying to create payment technology on top of private public key cryptography. Hal believed that a computer could be used as a tool to liberate and protect people, and not to control them. Let me take you back to a paper he wrote in the spring of 1993. Here's what he had to say. How can we defend our privacy in an era of increased computerization? Today, our lives are subject to monitoring in a host of different ways. Every credit card transaction goes into a database. Our phone calls are logged by the phone company and used for its own marketing purposes. Our checks are photocopied and archived by the banks. And new matching techniques combine information from multiple databases, revealing even more detail about our lives. As computer databases grow, as more transactions take place electronically over phone systems and computer networks, the possible forms of monitoring will grow with them. Predictably, most proposed solutions to this problem involve government. Here's when he had a novel idea and a novel concept proposed by David Shum and others in the cypherpunk movement. What if we use public key cryptography? What if one key, a public key, was known to everybody, the encrypted message that can only be decrypted by a private key, a key that someone else owned? He believed that this was the primary way that we could defend against government overreach. In 1994, he said, if you want to change the world, don't protest, write code. And as time went on, more discoveries were made. Other attempts to push the boundaries of this public-private key cryptography in the form of payments. And this led him on a path to discovery, a path that he would obsess about for the next decade. In 2004, he came up with the concept of a reusable proof of work. You do real computational work to create a token. You would send it to a server, a transparent server that everybody could see, that would then destroy it and give you a new token of equal value. You could reuse that proof of work without cheating the system. Digital scarcity at this point became real, transferable, tangible, and something that you couldn't fake. And up until this point, well, there have been some other attempts to do this, but this was a real breakthrough. So when Bitcoin was released in 2009, he saw practical value and practical use for this sort of system. He said it was a global, decentralized, yet consistent database. There's many applications for a global, consistent database. He even predicted in the future that there would be Bitcoin-backed banks, that banks would have Bitcoin as the reserve underlying currency, but would issue their own digital cash or their digital currency on top of it. He would continue his quest to work on Bitcoin, albeit with much less fervor and much less opportunity to do so, because he was diagnosed with ALS. After he was diagnosed, he wanted to put out this video before he started to decline in his health about his diagnosis and his outlook on Bitcoin, cryptography, and when he gets focused on a topic or something, how he just gets so into it.
My name is Hal Finney, and I'm making this recording for a few reasons, mostly because I want people in the future to be able to hear my voice and maybe something of my story. I was diagnosed 6 months ago with ALS, and as a result, I will be losing the ability to speak, among other things. And so this will be an opportunity for me to talk, and I appreciate the opportunity here to be recorded and to allow people in the future to hear me speak even when I can no longer do so. One of the peculiarities of my youth is that I did not have a very high opinion of my own abilities. I was always very modest and really didn't think of myself as being particularly smart or unusual. I just thought I was more interested in certain topics than other people, but that was why I was better at those subjects, was just more due to interest than ability. Sometimes I find a technical subject just becomes absolutely fascinating to me. In fact, fascinating is an understatement. Obsession would be a better word. I can't think about anything else. And it's just learning about this technology, particularly in terms of computers, because when you learn a new computer technology, you can immediately put it to work by writing software to use it and to be able to do things you couldn't do before. So this has happened to me a number of times over the years. It's completely uncontrollable when it happens. And it's really good in a way in that I'm amazingly productive during these times. I can write an amount of software programs that would take a normal person months and months to write, and I can just do it in a few days because I'm so excited and driven and obsessed about it.
Hal wrote about his journey in Bitcoin in 2013 in his final post called Bitcoin and Me. He talks about his journey interacting with Satoshi Nakamoto, about him being one of the first people to run Bitcoin, receiving the first coins from Satoshi. He talked about his love for running and how he started to push the boundaries of computer and hardware technology in order to be able to live and function normally. But I love how he ended the post. He said, "I'm pretty lucky overall. Even with ALS, my life is very satisfying. With Hal, I see a man who was curious, a man who was hopeful in the face of death, a man who was thoughtful, a man who thought about more than himself, a man who thought about the future and how he could use his skill sets, his talent, and his treasure to protect and defend others. He saw a future that was better than the one that he lived in today." Hal Finney passed away on August 28, 2014, and he fought against ALS every step of the way. And in that video that I shared, you can see his wife, Fran Finney. I want to highlight what she's been doing in order to honor Hal and bring awareness to ALS that we can all be a part of. Ledn has been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018, issuing over $9 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers all across the globe. People that don't want to sell their Bitcoin, that understand that they're holding an asset that's going to be able to absorb $100 trillion to $300 trillion worth of wealth that'll be worth $10 million one day. Yeah. You don't want to sell that kind of asset. You want to borrow against it. You can borrow up to 50% loan to value to this, and fiat can be in your account in less than 6 hours. Don't worry. Ledn is proven, and they are a leader in this space, and they have over 1,000 5-star customer reviews, so you can feel safe that your Bitcoin is still there. If you don't feel safe from what other people say, you can actually just see the Bitcoin in the address in the dashboard when you log in. The application takes just 2 minutes and you get 0.25% off your first loan by going to learn.ledn.io/simply to get started. One of the other ways you can continue to grow in your journey in Bitcoin on this show, we talk about it often, is by taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. Having both the public key is not enough. You need to have the private key to decrypt that encrypted message that says that this transaction belongs to me. I am the owner of this. Well, you can learn how to do that privately, safely, securely, and confidently by scheduling a free 30-minute consultation with the team at the Bitcoin Way. Get a coach to help coach you through exactly what this means and what it means to your future. To honor Hal and one of his lifelong passions, his wife, Fran Finney, has been carrying the torch and the beacon for raising awareness throughout the Bitcoin community and even further with the Running Bitcoin Challenge. This has been used to raise millions of dollars in awareness towards ALS. Starting from January 10th to January 31st of every year, we're challenged to walk, run the equivalent of a half marathon or 21K whenever you can and however you can throughout the course of the year. And that's always been labeled hashtag Running Bitcoin Challenge online if you want to participate. It's a great event and I'm going to be taking part of it this year and also donating. But to end our episode and to go back, Hal Finney's $10 million prediction when Bitcoin had no users, no traction, and the global wealth wasn't as large as it was in 2009 as it is today. It's just absolutely insane and absolutely mind-blowing. Let's go back to this conversation that Adam Back had with Joe Burnett and understand why this was such a crazy thing.
Bill thought that $10,000 was a pipe dream and never going to happen, right? So I think Hal Finney was just like, a decade ahead of his curve in terms of thinking about, that this could actually happen, right? So I think, because if everybody was 100% convinced that it's going there, it would already be there, right? And so there's got to be doubt about the pace of adoption, how much more money is, what the addressable market actually is. We don't fully know. I mean, I think Hal Finney's estimate is reasonable because still today, even though he made it, is because there is a lot of, monetary premium where people are trying to protect themselves from inflation and save by, buying real estate. In some cases, they're not even using it. It's just vacant. But, there's a lot of that in New York and China and different places, right? And that is not a great thing because it makes housing less affordable. And if there was a financial product or a monetary instrument that did that for you, it would make housing more affordable. So it would improve, cost of housing, access to housing, quality of housing that you can afford on a budget. So those will all be good things. And there are other things with monetary premium or where people are trying to protect against inflation, like, the bond market, and some more esoteric things like art, wine, where people use that as a kind of novel way to protect against inflation. And if you add all that stuff up, it's, 200 trillion is possibly a conservative estimate at this point because we've had a lot of inflation between 2000.
When you understand what's happening with global assets, you understand that the price and the value of these assets continues to go up astronomically, meaning that people are not able to opt into the existing wealth growing machine that has been available to people for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And when you combine this with the fact that governments and corporations now have more control to our digital identities, well, we need some sort of system that's going to be able to protect us against their overreach, but also allow us to capture global wealth and $100 trillion to $300 trillion worth. Being a whole coiner is going to be the equivalent of being a millionaire back from when I was growing up. That will be the standard. Right now, when you hear a $10 million Bitcoin price prediction, like what we're about to hear from Michael Saylor, you understand how much of a discount that Bitcoin truly is.
So we're winning, but I guess the good news for everybody is we're going to keep winning for the next 10 years. And there's 40 quarters during which Vanguard will first accidentally own my stock, then they will grudgingly let you buy it, then they will allocate 1% to it, and then they'll be like, wow, I guess it's a good idea. And what I say, and I've said it, Scott, and you've heard it, it's like, by the time the bankers tell you it's okay to buy it, it'll cost you $1 million of Bitcoin. And when they tell you it's a good idea, it'll cost 10 million of Bitcoin. So you're getting a 99% discount right now to do the work yourself and show some courage. And you get a 90% discount, when they make it easy for you, but you'll pay 10 times more.
Well, it's been a pleasure watching you do the work for the last 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Saylor.
Thank you.
It's at a 99% discount right now and a 90% discount once the banks make it easy. $10 million Bitcoin is inevitable when you look at the global wealth meltdown that's happening in the traditional financial system. One of the things I love to do is take time to remember, to honor people who've come before us, who laid the groundwork and the foundation. And I'm super grateful for Hal Finney, all of the work that he did with PGP, all of the sleepless nights that he had with Bitcoin and coding it and trying to create tools and technology for us to have a better future, a future that I believe that we're going to need more and more as we continue into this digital dystopia that we're moving towards. Thank you, Hal and Fran, for what you did. Thank you for what you continue to do. And that's what I'll always remember on January 10th. One of the ways you can continue to stack sats, especially if you believe that Bitcoin is going to be worth $10 million a coin like Hal Finney did, is you can continue to stack sats in multiple ways, not just buying it on exchange and then removing it to a hardware wallet, but also buying Bitcoin through Bitcoin mining. You can buy a state-of-the-art mining machine and have the team at SAS Mining host it for you. There's no markups, no middlemen, no contracts. You wire money onto their account. They buy machines. They host them with 100% carbon-free renewable energy sources, and sats flow directly to your wallet. Continue to stack sats because it's going to be very difficult to be a whole corner moving forward. Do that every way that you can. Work with the team at SAS Mining by using the QR code here to get started. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking. Go Eagles.